Hi everybody, welcome to Mike's Classic Pinball. I am Mike. So it's time for another one of my midweek ramblings. I haven't done one in a little while, so I thought, hey, it's time. But before we get into what this week is, I wanted to talk to you just briefly about yesterday's video. As you guys know, I've started to do some videos about electronics repair and repairing handheld toys and old vintage video game stuff. And I explained in a previous video why I wanted to do that. And yesterday was the upload of my first one. We fixed it to Pt.2. Let's be honest, it was a pretty steamy pile of a video. I'm really not that happy with it. And it didn't turn out near as cool as I wanted. Now, I did still upload it because I'm a glutton for attention. But I went ahead with it anyway. And looking back at it, I'm not thrilled with the video. I'm probably going to continue to do some more of them. It's only going to be every few weeks, maybe even just once a month that I do one of those for now. It was just kind of a side distraction because it's really cold in my garage and I'm not going to be out there as much as I usually would. But really wasn't happy with it. But I'm going to try a few more. I'm going to change up how I do things. I'd love some suggestions as to what you guys would like to see and how you guys would like to see it done. But I'm going to try a few more, see how they go. Then maybe I'll do some more after that. Maybe not. Maybe it's just a pointless venture, but we'll see. So what I wanted to talk about today has to do with a couple of things. First of all, a little bit with the Bally Champ and some questions that came up with that about why, and some other questions that have come up. But it's kind of like a sequel to a video I did about a year ago about not only why we restore these games, but why we should. And my frustrations with parting out games and giving up on them. It's kind of what I wanted to chat with you a little bit about. Now, the Bally Champ that I'm working on right now, a few of my friends, even Mark over at Mark's Basement Arcade, said I'd have passed on that one. That maybe wasn't the best choice for you to do. But I went ahead with it anyway for a couple of reasons. First of all, I hate seeing games being parted out. And there's a reason for that I'll explain to you in a minute. But number two, it's not my game. Even if it was, I probably still wouldn't part it out and give up on it. But it's not my game. It belongs to Larry, and he really wanted to see it back up and going. Plus, I kind of challenged him, said, give me a hard one, and he did. But the game actually works and is playable. There's a lot of bugs still to work out, but I managed to get the game running. I'm doing another video this weekend where we're going to go through some of those bugs and fix them up. And just get the game nice, get the game running. So we'll see how that goes. But I hate seeing games parted out. And, I've worked with some real garbage games. I've had some stuff that was really, really rough. Now, I have bought some garbage. As you guys know, I've been doing this almost 12 years, and I've been going kind of back through my library of games that I've owned, games that I've done, games that I've worked on, because what I want to do is I'm going to build myself a virtual cabinet that has all of my previous library on it, or at least as much as I can. So it's going to be fun. But we'll see how that comes together. But so I bought some real junk in my days. I bought some real trash that, looking back on, I maybe shouldn't have, but I did anyway. And I don't really regret that I did. I've never regretted getting a game. I've regretted getting rid of games. There's a handful of games I would love to have back that I've had in the past. I'd love to have another Lethal Weapon 3. I loved it. I had a Lethal Weapon 3 that I actually owned 3 separate times. And I know it was the same game that came back to me each time because I always leave either my card or a signature in the game, plus other things that I could tell. I loved Grand Lizard, Street Fighter 2, it's fantastic pinball. I really loved that. There's a handful of them that I wish I'd have kept and that I hadn't gotten rid of. But in this case, I had bought, this is a number of years ago, I saw up on my local classifieds, this lady had a 1961 Gottlieb Flying Circus. She said it was great, great condition. I had my doubts. Now, one of my big flaws is when I go look at a game, if I've decided I'm going to go look at a game and see if I'm going to purchase it or not, I cannot think of a single time where I didn't actually purchase it. If I go to look at a game, it's coming home with me. I can't think of a time I passed on a game. And I think there's only been once that I've actually ever negotiated. Usually I'll just look for the really good deals of a game, and very seldom will I buy a game that's working, which is maybe why I get the best deals. But this lady wanted $1,000 for this game. She wanted $1,000 for this 61 Flying Circus. I wouldn't give $1,000 for it now. It was not in great shape. So most of the plastics were missing. The playfield was pretty badly worn. 2 score wheels were missing. And everything just seemed rotted. It was kind of crumbling, coming apart. And the board on the bottom of the game was all but gone. There was only splinters of it left, and just hanging down. So this thing was junk, okay? And she wanted $1,000 for it. And I told her, I said, look, I'm gonna pass on this game, but I need to explain to you why. I'm not trying to insult you or anything, but this game has massive, massive flaws to it. And I could go online and I could find the game for about $700, shiny and new. You're gonna have a very difficult time selling this game for anything other than parts. And she totally understood. It's just that she didn't know. I think she had seen that there was, I don't know, Gorgar online or something for almost $1,000. Oh, that's what mine must be worth. It really wasn't, and it was a heaping pile. And she said, well, what do you give me for it? I don't want to insult you. Now, I've been in the pawn business before, so I don't give out numbers. First person to give a number loses. But so I said, I don't want to insult you. She says, about $100. Done. And I bought it. I took it home. Should I have? Probably not. Did I fix it? Yes. I got the game fully running and I sold it about a month later. And I really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. It was great. So I bought some trash, but I've never parted a game. In all of my years of doing this, I've never parted out a game. Now, I've given up on games 2.5 times. Two and a half times I've given up on games before. And one of them was Cleopatra. Now, you guys have heard me talk endlessly about my hatred for that game. Let me explain. This was game number 1 I gave up on. And I guess I felt burned. But I really never, ever wanted to part out a game. Let me explain why. I have a hatred of parting out games. We'll get back to Cleopatra in a second, I promise. I have a hatred of parting out games because, well, first of all, it's like I talked about in the previous videos. X minus 1 is 1 less. And for every time we part out a game, that's gone. They don't make them anymore, okay? They're never gonna make a 61 Flying Circus again. There's a lot of these games, there's no games they really still make. Once that's it, that's the number that there's going to be. And every time we kill one, that's one left, and the game will eventually go extinct. And I feel we have a bit of an obligation to save some of this piece of American arcana. Now, the other reason is I had a Capcom flipper football that I had gotten from a good friend, Kenyon. And this guy who was in town, I'm not going to talk about him, but he saw it at my house. He loved it and he wanted it. And he offered me a trade for a couple of games. Now, flipper football, I had put a lot of time and money into this game, including that really large DMD display that's actually in the game. That was impossible to find and incredibly expensive. But I put a new one of those in and got the game all set and going. The only problem with the game was the sound. There was a tiny little square chip on the soundboard that 2 of the legs on it were broken, so it just needed to buy a new sound chip. But he really wanted the game, and I explained, the sound doesn't work, so that's fine, I'll get a chip. And so we swapped, and I think I got a hotline and I think a jukebox that I never got running. And I ended up selling to somebody who was a jukebox expert. I never got it running because I don't know shit about jukeboxes, but that doesn't count. So, because it was a jukebox, not a pinball. And so I went over to the guy's house about a week later, and there was the stripped playfield sitting on the side of his house. It was hard to miss, big green playfield. And in the back on his wood pile was the body of the game. What the hell? This is a gorgeous game. What? Oh yeah, I parted it out. You know, I couldn't really find a sound chip, so I just parted the game. It's like, patience, okay? You've had the game less than a week, you parted it out. And he does that all the time with games. I've seen him part out games that just needed a little love, and it just made me so fucking salty that I hated the idea of parting out a game after that. So, but back to Cleopatra. So I saw it for sale for, I think, was $275. I think is what I paid for it. This is several years ago, from a guy out in Roy who lived on a property right near one of the properties owned by John Schneider of Dukes of Hazzard. And this guy was a massive Dukes of Hazzard fan, and he even had two of the original screen cars. He had it generally in a cop car, had all of the plates and certificates and everything. It was super cool. But he had this game, and $275, and you know, we chatted for a long time. He lived on a property just down from where John Schneider's property was in Utah. He's got properties all over the place, but he used to live there. But took it home, and this was not the EM version, but this was a Gottlieb System 1 when it was the first of the solid state ones. And took it home, and I couldn't get it to run. What it was it would start, and then just midway through boot sequence, just freeze up, and it wouldn't continue on. And I tore that damn thing apart. I absolutely just ripped it to shreds, putting it back together, tried, and it was exactly the same result every time. And it's also where I learned about the importance of the fish paper between the start button and the start switch.
Let's try the red one. Okay, I'll try the green. Let's try the red one again. Not again!
Every time I push it, I end up having to put a glove on or use a vacuum screwdriver because it wasn't aware at that point that the fish paper was that necessary because it was just completing circuit to the start. So I tried and I tried and I tried with that game, and I couldn't get it to run. And I finally decided, you know what, I'm done with it. I've been working on it forever. And I put it up on the classified saying, you know, here's this Gottlieb Cleopatra. I can't get it running. Somebody just make me an offer. And I had this guy, Kenyon, who contacted me, who lived about an hour south of me. And he said, yeah, I'd be interested. Can you bring it on down to me? I've got a couple of games that maybe need a little love. Maybe you can help me out. So I went down, and we immediately hit it off. Kenyon is such an amazing guy. And he had more than a couple of games. In his house was decked out with some of the most beautiful games I've ever seen in wonderful condition. It'd be impossible for me to remember them all, but he had a really nice Xenon. He had Cybernaut, Back to the Future, Dracula, Fishtail, Star Trek 25th, just tons of them in his house. And then I thought, oh, these are really cool. He said, oh yeah, well, these are the working ones. Come out to the shed. I've got a couple in the shed. He had more than a couple in the shed. He was screaming towards triple digits, and all of them kind of rough. And he actually had a wee bit of a passion for Gottlieb System Bs. Really interesting stuff like Raven and Goldwings and stuff. Some really cool games out there. And I ended up giving him the Cleopatra. And, we did games back and forth for a while, and he had the Cleopatra up, I think, in a day. And I don't remember exactly what it was, but I think it was a coin switch. And I was so fucking pissed off. I was raging pissed. It's like, you've got to be kidding me. But nope. Yeah, it was, I think it was just like a coin switch. It was all it was, that it wouldn't let the boot sequence complete. He was super happy with how it looked because I'd spent a lot of time on that. But got a lot of games back and forth. So that's why I hate Cleopatra so much. And that's the first game that ever really felled me up. It's the first game I ever really failed at. A few years later, I went to go see this guy who had a 1957 Williams Deluxe baseball pitch and bat in his barn. And sweet game. It was rough, and there was some bits missing. I know that the pitching score motor, or the pitching motor was gone. There was a couple other things wrong, and I knew that this was going to be my symphony game. I wanted to take this all the way back to just looking like factory. And I got it home, researched it, took a few pictures, and put it up online, what needed to be done. And I was looking for parts to see if anybody could help me out. I paid $50 for the game out of a barn. So I wasn't into it too much, and I was willing to spend a little money to get it up and going. This guy from California gets a hold of me and says, I'll give you $1,000 for it right now. And you don't have to do anything. I will send my movers out there, and I'm going to send you a check as soon as it clears, and you've got the money in your account. I'm going to go ahead and send my movers out there. They'll pack it up and they'll bring it out. This game I, a few days ago, spent $50 on. Guy wanted to give me $1,000 for it. Yeah, done. So that's kind of number two. I didn't read, that's actually the 0.5. That's the half one. I really did want to get it up and going, but I decided not to. The guy wanted it as is and was going to offer me a fortune for it. I took it. I really wish I'd kept that one, but, you know, so be it. The third one was fairly recently, and I flat out gave up on this one. And it's darn near the first time I did part out a game, but I didn't. Because it was a one-ball pony. It was a Valley Victory Special. Some pictures of it and stuff. Now, guy wanted $200, not too far from me. He just lived about half hour north of me. He wanted $200, and I have such a deep, soft spot in my heart for these kind of games that are the really old special ones. Because I've been stuck doing Williams, mid-70s Williams EMs for so long. I wanted something different. I had also just recently bought an old Key flasher slot, and I was kind of really into some of these more interesting titles like that. But he had a Victory Special. Now, I had a pony before. I'd had one before, and so I liked them. But I decided to go up and get it, and I just gave the guy the money. I knew I wanted it, so I just gave the guy the money. And pro tip, a one-ball pony won't fit in a Prius. Just so you know. A one-ball pony will not fit in a Prius. Now, an EM game, an EM pinball will fit in a Prius. It does work. Let's see if I can find a picture for you, but I've moved several games in my Prius. It works if you pack it right. Not only does it work, but you can still fit groceries and your wife in the car as well. But so I bought this one-ball pony, and it was actually not in too bad a shape. The body was okay. It wasn't spectacular. It was okay. The playfield was quite nice. Back glass was a little rough, but considering the age, it wasn't too bad. What I didn't really focus on when I was looking at the game was the relay board. It was literally, I don't mean this figure, I mean literally stacked with close to 2 inches of rat shed, just caked. And I, put the gloves and the mask on, cleaning all of that off. And The end result was a relay board that had completely degraded. There was almost nothing. The leaf switches on the relay banks would just crumble in your hands, completely rusted through. Coils were just coming apart in my hands. It was destroyed. And I knew I'd just have to buy a new relay board. And I didn't have the time. But I didn't want to part the game out. So I gave up. I gave up on it, and I put it up on the local groups to say, hey, somebody make me an offer on this. I think it's restorable. You probably don't, but somebody just make me an offer because I need to make room in my garage for more games. And I ended up giving to this guy for $20, and he restored it. It looked absolutely beautiful when it was done. He got it all up and working, and I was so happy because that was another game that was going to go to the trash in most circumstances, but it didn't. It stayed, and it has a new life. Champ, ripped off bottom, ripped off back box, massive destruction, huge hack job, but the game's playing. Now, it's on live support, it's playing, and soon it will be running again, and then we're going to make it beautiful, and we're going to give it life that it normally wouldn't get. I mean, this isn't the prohibition against pinball era where we have to wreck them all. We should save as many as we can. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today, and I've now been ranting for another good 20 minutes. So I appreciate you listening to me. It's just something I've been thinking a lot about, and some friends have been talking to me about, so I wanted to talk to you guys about it. So yeah, let me know what you guys thought of the last video with the electronics, what you'd like to see on the next games. And go ahead and leave me lots of comments. I love talking to people, very narcissistic that way. Those of you going to Expo, have a wonderful time. I wish I could be there with you, but I won't be this year, so maybe next year. But to everybody else, please like, comment, subscribe, all of that fun jazz. And we'll work on a video this weekend where we'll see if we can show you Champ playing and playing well, not just barely like, go. Let's see if we can get it playing so then we can go to bulletproofing and mechanics. Till then, thank you guys, and I will see you again soon. Have a great day.